Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass. Thank you for watching this Ag Forecast, brought to you by Agrible, the makers of Morning Farm Report. Morning Farm Report software gives growers the insights to make the best decisions possible about their operations. You can get past, current, and future ag forecasts, plus information about how to best manage your crops at every stage. Well, let's start talking here about the flow pattern of the jet stream, 6 miles above our heads. To an atmospheric scientist, to see a pattern of the winds like this tells us that the pattern is extremely active. You see, this is in stark contrast to what we call zonal flow. Zonal flows basically have this strong west to east component of the jet stream. Instead, we have a highly amplified flow pattern. Starting out west, there's a cutoff low here sitting over the southwestern United States, and that's what's helping to trigger a lot of thunderstorm activity in the western mountains. A ridge builds in the central plains, allowing for some warmth to return there. About a week or so after that blizzard hit this part of the wheat belt. We have a deep trough that is sitting over the northeastern part of the country, and that's where I really want to get this forecast started with. You see, check out this map. This map is from weather.gov, and it shows us for early Monday morning where we are watching for frost and freeze threat. Now, what you can clearly see in through here is parts of Wisconsin, Michigan, northern Illinois, really towards Chicagoland, northern half of Indiana, and all of Ohio, and a big chunk of West Virginia and Kentucky are right now under frost advisories or a freeze warning. Now, this is important because depending on when fields were planted, we could be at different stages of emergence here with our corn crop. And the hope is that most of the crop planted in this part of the country still has its growing point below ground. So I have to keep a very close eye on this. But basically, deep in that trough in the flow of the jet stream is where we're going to get that cooler air. Now let me take a moment to kind of explain to you why it gets so cold when you get into the position of the trough like that. You see, this is an animation from our newest satellite called GOES-16, and there goes sunset. As it starts back over, see the really clear skies here? Well, inside of that deep trough, you have sinking air in this part of the trough, thus clearing out the skies. Now, the consequence of that is having clear skies overnight at this time of year allows for strong radiational cooling. That's basically where the ground is just giving up its heat back to space. With a nice layer of clouds, that heat would be trapped and absorbed and then emitted back toward the surface, thus keeping everything warm. In a nutshell, clouds act as a blanket on Earth at night. But when it clears out like this, we can get strong, what we call radiational cooling, allowing the temperatures to plummet. Now, here out west, you saw the trough spinning over here in Southern California. Look at the thunderstorm activity. A lot of storms raging through the mountains on Sunday afternoon, but in the middle part of the country, all the way to about here, kind of the far eastern part of the Corn Belt, very clear day on Sunday. Just looking out for those cooler temperatures into early Monday morning. So let's take it and look at the last 14 days of accumulated precipitation. We've been talking about this now for several days, but let's take one last look. We can clearly see an enormous spot right here across the southern parts of the Corn Belt where we've received at least 5 inches of rain, in some locations better than 10, and right in through here, more than a foot of precipitation. Now, we've been talking about the damage this has done in parts of Missouri and southern Illinois and northern Arkansas. But I want to show you what fields look like right on the periphery of this heavy rainfall area right in through here. Jason Little, a part of Agrible, took these fantastic pictures with a quadcopter showing us exactly the extent of the flooding before we had this drier time period over the last weekend. In fact, if you were to drive through fields in east central Illinois, you'd see a lot of this. The corn's emerged, but the soil is soggy and muddy, and there's standing water in some spots. Now, this is some higher ground, so you can clearly see we don't have big lakes here, but there are some spots where the corn is still submerged that far north. Now, just when you're thinking that the whole country is really, really wet, I'll tell you something, by the way. Since we've been monitoring the modern drought monitor since the year 2000, this is the smallest extent. We are currently having the smallest extent of drought across the country. But the only place that it is still dry is down here in southern or the southeastern part of the United States, really in Florida. I'm going to show you what that looks like. Here's a picture from the Georgia Forestry Commission. And you can see some of the fires that are burning near Jacksonville. Here's what they look like on our new GOES-16 true color imagery. You can see huge smoke plumes covering Jacksonville, Florida. So I know it's really, really wet in other places, but I want you to know Florida, southeastern United States, pretty dry right now. So let's get into the overall flow pattern and discuss the upcoming forecast. Starting first, I want to go early in the morning on Monday, May 8th. and show you the massive ridge that's building over Greenland. You see, when we have a big ridge here and a trough directly to its south, this is what we call the negative phase of the North Atlantic Oscillation. Now, what does all of that mean? Basically, when we start to build a big ridge here over Greenland or north of the Hudson or near Iceland, in this whole area, that tends to favor cooler eastern half of the United States temperatures. And that's something we care a lot about right now because we're trying to rapidly accumulate growing degree units to get that corn crop out of the ground and going strong. But here's the cutoff low that's spinning over California. Here's the low pressure aloft that's really keeping things really cool in the northeast. And what's dominating the flow, again, is this big ridge. Now watch as I click play and we get in through Monday into Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And what you can continually see is that as the heights continue to build over the northern latitudes here, we tend to keep troughs over the eastern part of the United States. And that is just going to keep this part of the country cooler than average. And you can see as I continue to play this on out, that getting into May 15th, 16th, and 17th, the model is just continuing to keep that cooler pattern around. So we need to be aware of this because with that brand new corn crop planted, we're not going to be accumulating growing degree units very, very quickly. I also want to show you this. We in the meteorological community have been talking about this now for several days. What you're looking at here is the North Pacific. And what I want you to see here is this. Look at this. Ridge, trough, ridge, trough, ridge, trough, ridge, trough. We have got an incredibly active pattern across the Pacific Ocean. Now, what I want you to see as I click play here is as this wave train continues to move to the east, it is just going to keep the weather across the United States unsettled. Nothing is really slowing down this wave train with time here. And that's an important feature to be on the lookout for. Because as long as this stays active, it's going to be really hard to get that 5 to 10 day dry stretch into the middle part of the country where we can really get the rest of this crop planted. Now, it doesn't mean you're not going to have a few 2 or 3 days in a row where you're going to have some drier, warmer weather. It just says we're not going to get that maybe 10-day period where we can just get everything dried back down the way we want it and get the crop planted. So let's take a look at the short term now. What we've got here is an animation by the NAM model. I'm going to start this off early in the morning on Monday. And the first feature we're going to watch is right here in the Dakotas, this little weak low pressure system. You see, we had a good drying out weekend here in the center part of the country, but I'm going to show you what's going to happen here with this low. So as we move forward here, watch it slide to the south and east late in the day on Monday into early morning Tuesday, bringing around a precipitation right across Iowa into Illinois and Indiana. Watch it again. So this is later in the day on Monday, early morning Tuesday, sliding right in through there. And then we got another system building here by the end of the week. You see, as this system moves through, it's going to be bringing some precipitation to parts of Iowa, Illinois, and Indiana. In fact, when it's all said and done, this is what it's going to look like through Thursday of this week. There's that narrow band of precipitation. So for a lot of folks in the Corn Belt, it's going to be a dry start to the week, but we're watching this system coming right in through this part of the country early this week. Now, let's take this and kind of fast forward to the end of the week and start late in that on Wednesday using a different model. It's called the GFS. And let's go forward to see what our next bigger system is going to do. What we've got here is the emergence of a low pressure center I was talking about last week, coming right into parts of Oklahoma and Texas. And as we talked about, the models had hinted that this system, unlike the past few systems, is going to take a more southerly track. So we're again seeing precipitation here. Watch this system head more toward the south and east rather than right across the northern part of Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, and Wisconsin. Here we go. Watch the difference. System gets going and then really takes that southerly track. Now, the good news about it taking that track is that higher pressure builds back in pretty quickly. Although it will be chilly after this system comes through, we do clear the skies back out by next Sunday, Mother's Day. So what we saw here was basically our next system really taking shape right in through here and then really trying to move to the south and east of the primary Corn Belt. It will still be bringing more precipitation to the southern Corn Belt, but the northern part of the Corn Belt, drier weather still continuing. So this is the next thing that I'm really watching over this coming week. And I'm going to finish up with this map. You know, with the cooler weather that's hanging around, thanks to the negative phase of the North Atlantic Oscillation, we're trying to see when that pattern is going to break down. And I'll be honest, the signals are not that clear just yet. But I'm going to show you something from the European model. We're going to go out all the way to the end of May. And what I'm finally starting to see at the end of May is warmer temperatures kind of amassing themselves right here in the eastern part of the United States, really hitting most of the Corn Belt. Now, I don't have a ton of certainty in this forecast, but the model is picking up on a slightly warmer pattern toward the end of the month. Until we get there, though, I think that the eastern half of the country will be experiencing some cooler weather thanks to what's going on in the jet stream sitting over parts of Canada and Greenland. With that, I'll go ahead and wrap up our forecast. We hope you look forward to Agrible's next ag forecast on Thursday. To get Morning Farm Report for your operations, complete with a daily email that shows a snapshot of your field conditions each morning, go to morningfarmreport.com. Sign up for a free account. Full grower accounts are free if you sign up for our Sustainable Yield program or for growers who work with ADM merchandisers. Thank you.